So these layers had all come from one place, which indicates that there was a whole system for putting trunks into what would have been the guard's van and sending things forward. Some of these labels I couldn't rescue very well, but they indicated they were sending them ahead to be collected. And that's something we just can't do these days, not without a great deal of faff. But this is the system for sending these trunks ahead of yourself so that you would arrive and your stuff would be there. So unfortunately I was unable to preserve them as well as I'd have liked, but I think I'll stick these back inside the trunk inside the roof when I've finished. So this was, I thought it was my grandfather's trunk, but as I started to look at the labels and saw that they were going to Oxford and to Winchester, I realised that this is my uncle's trunk. My uncle was born around 1926 or so. So when this trunk was made, you know, a lot of the horrors of the world hadn't happened. And he would have been a young boy going off to his prep school with beautiful innocence. They had the First World War, so it wasn't complete innocence, but there was a lot of innocence at that time, you know, and God was the feature of their life. They were strongly Christian in that family. And they weren't loaded, but they were by today's standards. So he was going to a prep school. And this trunk would have been as beautiful as this brass is here. You can just see the remains of this patina here. All this metal, all this metal would have been bright and shiny all around. So the bits that I'm painting now to try and paint off the rust would have been all lovely and shiny. And you can see that it's made of wood. This fabric is probably linen, I imagine. It's been as a liner. Obviously it's gone faded with time, and I'm going to try and replace that. And behind that you've got some wood, which I've just drilled through just to see if I could try and fit this closing mechanism, but it's quite solid. There's nothing rotten in the wood. That's partly due to the fact it has been stored kind of indoors or out of the elements. So if I could just close this up, you can see why I need to put in the soft close mechanism. It comes down quite a pace and closes in. These are quite sharp, these things, and I've got the key but not here, so it's going to be quite nice looking when it's revived. And his name was on the top. So the story of this little boy going to prep school with this enormous trunk, which would have been big for him, with his books and his Bible and his clothes and maybe he had a picture of his parents or something in there. I don't know the details. Just made me think, well, maybe I should preserve this. Maybe I should record it and try and find a way to replace as far as possible this lining. You see, there's some damage to the wood, but that's the only damage in the whole structure. Look how well made it is. I mean, these rivets, maybe in one or two places they're coming out, but they've been hammered in. And that has made me think about the person who made this. that they had a system, probably handmade trunks, I imagine. There's something about the way the leather's been put in that indicates they did a lot of them, but something about the way the metal is slightly concave, as it has aged, indicates that maybe that was put on by hand. Maybe all these pieces. I mean, there was mechanisation in 1920, so I'm assuming the rivets and these things would have been made by machine, but putting the trunk together would have been probably, I imagine, by hand. So that's the story of this trunk, and it makes me think about the person who made it and how they probably didn't have a pension scheme, and they probably didn't have their own kids going to prep school, and what kind of a strange life there was in those days, that you had these people who would just accept their situation as being a trunk maker, sending their and these richer people sending their kids to school with this artifact, actually, which carried my uncle's belongings not only to Winchester when he was at prep school, but also to Oxford, where he studied. And I think he abandoned the trunk probably about that time. But he himself went on to serve in the Second World War, and then he started to work in Saudi Arabia and the UAE as an electrical engineer. So actually he spent a lot of his time not in this country, although he did live here towards the end of his life. And I don't know, it's just a sort of record of somebody, it's outlasted him. That's the odd thing. So his story is still, some of his story is in this box.